Which statues are next, the president asked today? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson? It's not a joke. Suddenly, it's a serious question. Thomas Jefferson indisputably was a great man. He was the author of the Declaration of Independence, founder of the University of Virginia, and maybe most importantly, the greatest thinker in American political history. All of us live in his shadow. Unfortunately, however, Jefferson was also a slaveholder.
I've seen this argument all over social media in the last couple of days, and taken at face value, it's not altogether unreasonable. The truth is that many of our founding fathers were slave owners, and during a time when abolitionism, while not exactly mainstream, was certainly a visible option.
41 of the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence held slaves. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, had a plantation full of slaves. George Mason, the father of the Bill of Rights, also owned slaves, unfortunately. But does that make what they wrote illegitimate?
In fact, almost all of our historical heroes throughout the centuries held views which, today, would be recognized as morally repugnant. That's not an excuse, that's just reality.
But to the fanatics on the left, it means that Jefferson must be purged from public memory forever. The demands are already coming that we do that. In 2015, students at the University of Missouri demanded the removal of a Jefferson statue. 2 years ago, on CNN, anchor Ashley Banfield suggested the Jefferson Memorial in Washington might have to go. Needless to say, there is literally no limit when you start thinking like this.
But here's the thing. When we put up statues of Thomas Jefferson, we aren't explicitly celebrating his views on slavery. We're honoring the achievement for which he's best known, being a seminal figure in the founding of our country. Robert E. Lee, on the other hand, is best known for leading an army against the United States in a war that took almost as many American lives as all other wars combined to date, and which was fought expressly to preserve the institution of slavery. And to those of you clamoring to clarify that the Civil War was really about states' rights, yeah, but a state's right to what? Specifically, slavery. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that Jefferson was a good guy and Lee was a bad guy and that's the end of the story. History is more complicated than that, and it's not just equivocation to acknowledge that history and morality have a genuinely and often uncomfortably complicated relationship. But the relative morality of these two men isn't really the point. The point is that, today, they serve as symbols for two very different ideals. Most people, myself included, reject the impossible standard that we can only celebrate historical figures who were completely flawless and totally immune to the moral failures of their time. But it's still important to take into account why we're honoring these figures, and what sort of message that why sends to our fellow humans. If a person's claim to fame was explicitly championing white supremacy, then removing public monuments that honor that person isn't just about being politically correct or trying to erase history. It's about not celebrating white supremacy. And that's not too much to ask.